Welcome back to the channel today, guys. Now, first things first, I want to say I apologize for the little bit of lateness on this video. I wanted to get this video out yesterday, actually, but I've been swamped these past couple days. So for that, I do apologize. And second, I'm just going to come out and say it. How is this episode controversial? In any way, shape, or form? Ridiculous. Now, one good thing about me doing this episode today is the fact that I've had a couple days to hear other people's opinions on the episode before giving my own. And I saw everyone saying, oh, this is the most controversial episode of the season yet. I can't believe they did this. And I watched this episode and think to myself, how? How is this controversial? Rudy does more controversial stuff in season 1 than this. I'll tell you that right now. I don't get it personally, but we'll get into it when we get to said scene. I promise you that. So without further ado, let's just get into Mushoku Tensei season 2, episode 6 today as we see the daily life at Renoa Academy. Our episode begins today as we see our boy Rudy going through his morning routine as we just hear, school life is monotonous. First, I get out of bed and I start my daily training regimen. Then once I get back to my room, I do some magic drills. Zenobu keeps begging me to teach him figure making, so I need the practice. But it's not going too well. Then I eat breakfast and lunch with Zenoba. The food here falls short of modern Japanese cooking, but there are enough similar dishes to keep me satisfied. As we see that Ellen Elise is still being Ellen Elise. Fucking wild. Hell, I'd argue this succubus, even being in this school, is more controversial than anything that happens in this episode. In the afternoon, I take basic classes in healing, divine, and barrier magic. Roxy taught me about barriers a long time ago, and I thought I understood, but I guess I missed some things. So, starting over from the beginning should be quite educational. And when I'm not in class, I research teleportation in the library. I've gone through a lot of books, but since all teleportation is apparently taboo, I haven't found many details. My best source of information might actually be the book that Mr. Fitz mentioned to me. And overall, I've worked out a daily cycle and I've started to settle into the academy. And I know some people don't like these kind of episodes, guys, but I don't really mind them. These are like little in-betweener episodes before our big events that really like patch the story up, really like fill in our gaps and show us like, what happens between these big incidents. And I really like them because they usually give a lot of character development for characters. And as we transition to our next scene, we see one such moment with Fitz here as she asks Rudius, can I sit with you? And he tells her, do you even need to ask? As Rudy says, man, I feel like this guy really gets me. He understands me. As Rudius notices that Sylphie actually has a book of teleportation herself right here. As she tells him, you see, someone I know went missing in that disaster too. But don't worry about it. I recently learned that he's alive. I wonder who that is. I never got the chance to go looking for him, though. As we see that Sylphie apparently does feel a little bad about that. Which I guess I do understand in that regard. And it's because of the guilt she feels in this situation that she tells Rudy that, this is just a suggestion, but I'd like you to let me help you investigate the mass teleportation. Would you mind having to listen to someone who can only join you occasionally? As Rudius says, of course not. I would be delighted. And it's here as they shake hands on it, and Sylphie looks delighted herself. Our boy Rudy starts blushing like, oh my god, what are these feelings I'm feeling right now? And it's here as we transition to later that day, and these two are walking with each other. Rudius thinks to himself, you know, I think I'm starting to get closer to Mr. Fitz. But there's still a lot I don't know about him. As he asks, why do you always wear sunglasses? As Sylphie tells him, you know, I got my reasons, and I can't really explain that, sorry. And I'm assuming it's to hide that Fitz is actually a girl. That's my assumptions, at least. And it's here Rudy asks her, so have you been casting without incantations since you were a child? As Sylphie says, you're really full of questions today, huh? As she tells him, a long time ago, my master rescued me. Then I asked to learn from him. He's an amazing person, and I still look up to him even now. As Rudy says, wow, I would love to meet this person. And Sylphie's just getting a kick out of this at this point as she says, I don't think that'd work out, Rudy. She is 100% just messing with him at this point. And I kind of love it. It's adorable. As Rudy even says, why does my heart beat faster when he smiles at me? I'm sure I don't swing that way. Right? You know, I gotta say, guys, I really love their interactions. I didn't know how I'd feel about her not telling him that she's actually Sylphie this whole time, but I'm actually kind of liking it, to be honest. These scenes have been pretty damn good. But as we transition to our next scene, we just hear, Master, please teach me how to sculpt figurines. As we hear, Zenoba is a pervert. Or should I say, a figure geek who took things too far? As Rudius recalls a time that he saw him naked hugging a statue. So awkward. As he says, he loves figures more than anything else. And as we transition back, Shinobu insists that, why do you refuse to begin my instruction, Master? I'm ready. As Rudius thinks, you know, making figures isn't really what I'm here for, and I can't really find my inspiration. But Stills tells him, Shinobu, my tutelage will be strict. As Shinobu's like, of course, Master, I live to serve. As Rudius says, excellent, my student. I shall now impart the secrets of my art. But as we see Shinobu trying to make the figures like Rudius does, we see that he can't do it. He doesn't have the magic to do something like that. So because this doesn't work, we move on to plan B, which is to use as little magic as possible. As we see, Rudius makes a clay block and starts hand carving it, saying, it's the most primitive and certain method, but it's also the hardest. But even someone without mana should be able to learn this. As we see that this pumps up Zenoba, baby. But even then, he still fails. As we hear, Zenoba's not good with his hands. His super strength keeps getting in the way of any delicate work he tries to do. And it's here as Rudius actually brings this topic up to Sylphie the next time he sees her. She suggests that, you know, I don't know if this will help, but there was a similar case in the Ossuran capital. They wanted to do something, but they lacked the talent and skill. As Rudy asks, how'd they get around that problem then? And Sylphie says, well, they got a slave to do it. As Rudius says, alright then, I'll check with Zenoba, then visit the slave market during break next month. But of course, that's not the end of our conversation, guys. No. As Sylphie's got to be quite adorable, saying, you know, now that you mention it, I'll have some time off, next break, actually. Coincidence. As even Rudius's dense ass picks up what she's trying to say right here. As he says, would you, care to join us? As she instantly brightens up and says, can I? I'm not going to be intruding? As Rudy says, not at all. I'll even buy you a meal for talking to me. Man, Sylphie's really got Rudy in the palm of her hands right now, huh, guys? And as we transition to our next scene, we see the three of them looking around, heading to the slave market to go potentially pick up a slave to help with Zenobu's work. And as they're looking around the market, Sylphie can't help but say, wow, they really are all naked, huh? And they're so big! I didn't know they got like that! Nani? As Rudy says, spoken like a true virgin. I was one of you once, you know. I get it. Right now, though, yeah, I got other things to worry about. As she asks him, you must be used to places like this, huh, Rudy? As he tells her, you know, I'm sure you will be too once you gain some experience. As she gets dejected, asking, wait, so that means you do have experience then? I feel like some little ray of hope inside of Sylphie just died a little bit right here, guys. Poor Sylphie. Eris beat you to it. Sorry, girl. And it's here Zenobu brings up that we need to find someone magically gifted and naturally skilled with their hands. As Rudy says, you know, I guess dwarves are known for their dexterity after all. And it's here Sylphie says something interesting, actually, as she says, you know, if you're gonna teach them magic, I think you should pick a child who doesn't know any yet. Because learning without incantations is easier if you start young. And starting to cast by 5 or so does wonders for your mana capacity. As Rudy says, I thought most people thought that mana capacity is determined at birth. As Sylphie says, that's what the textbooks say, but my master's case and mine prove them wrong. As Rudy says, I guess that explains why I have so much mana since I started casting at 2 or 3. Just an interesting little tidbit I wanted to throw in, guys, because I found it a little interesting and kind of explains why Rudy has so much mana, after all. And it's here as we transition to our next scene, and they're talking to one of the slave sellers. They say, you know, another race is fine as long as they're naturally dexterous. The most important thing is that we need someone young. And it's here they do find someone who meets their criteria. A 6-year-old dwarf girl. As the seller tells them, the whole family went into slavery to cover her parents' debts. She's not in the best of health. Malnutrition, apparently. She can't speak human, and she can't read. But what 6-year-old can? I feel like that applies to our world nowadays too, guys. And it's here as we transition to our next scene, and they go to meet this girl. We see that she's in very rough shape, as Sylphie immediately starts healing her upon seeing her. And one look from Sylphie, and Rudius knows exactly what's up. And as he approaches her, he actually talks to her in Dwarven, I believe, which he learned in Season 1. And as he introduces himself, he actually says, there's something we'd like you to do for us. But because she's not responding to him, this trader decides to get a little physical. But Rudy instantly stops him, because he knows what's up here. As he says, she's in despair. She has the hopeless look of someone who longs for death. As Zenobu says, you've seen people before, Master? As he says, quite often, a long time ago. As we see that Rudius understands where she's coming from completely. As he says, my eyes used to look the same way. I'd lost hope, and I wanted to give up on everything. As he actually asks her flat out, do you want to die? And that instantly gets a reaction out of her. As he tells her, there's nothing you can do about all this. I know that feeling. And if you'd like, I could end it all for you. Now, I could see a lot of people finding that controversial, that he would say something like that to a slave. But here's the thing, guys. Rudy gets it. He knows what despair actually feels like. And he knows what her actual options are in this situation. As he says himself, I can't bring salvation to her life. Sure, I could buy her and give her a job right now. But I've been through enough to know that that wouldn't be salvation. I can't save her by forcing her to do something against her will. And if that's all I can offer her, then I might as well put her out of her misery if she wants it. And it's here with that choice presented to her. Probably the only actual choice she's ever had to make in her whole life. She's ever been able to make. She tells Rudius with her own words, I don't want to die. As Rudius wraps his coat around her and says, all right then, that's that. That's more than enough. You don't have to say, I want to live. I don't want to die is good enough for now. Frankly, I think this scene was actually handled really tastefully, guys. Like, I've seen some slavery in some anime that's really off-putting. Really, really off-putting. And I think this scene was actually handled with a lot of care, honestly. So how the hell is this controversial? People are stupid, guys. I tell you, people are dumb. And find the word controversy in anything. Literally anything. And as we transition to our next scene, she starts scarfing down some food, which she should, because she's probably very hungry. As Sylphie says, by the way, Rudy, what's her name gonna be? And as Rudius asks her what her name is, she actually gives him a title instead of a name. As Sylphie says, that's right. Dwarves don't get proper names until they turn 7. She's too young to have one. As she says, we'll have to give her a name ourselves. And since she's a girl, let's make it a cute one. So naturally, Rudius leaves this up to Zenoba because she's going to be his slave, so he should give her a name. As he says, well, let's name her Julius. It was the name of my younger brother, who I killed because I didn't know my own strength. Damn. As Rudy says, well, since she's a girl, let's at least make the name Juliet. And upon hearing her name, she seems quite happy about it, honestly, which is good. And as we transition to our next scene, we find out what her daily duties are. As we hear, we decided that Julie would live with Zenoba and wait on him. And during the day, I teach her languages and incantationless magic. And slowly but steadily, Zenoba's and my figure-making plan went ahead. And on that note, our episode ends. And this episode was not controversial, guys. Let me tell you that right now. It really wasn't. I shouldn't have to tell you guys this, but just in case. Slavery bad, guys. It very bad. Don't do it. But what people don't understand is the fact that these are different times. Very different times. Slavery was very commonplace back in the day. Everyone was a slave. Children, men, women, color, race, it doesn't matter. Everyone was in slavery. I'm not saying it's a good thing. Obviously, it's not. But these are different times, different customs. This is going to be commonplace to have a slave. And I think, again, they handled this episode very tastefully, if anything. So, labeling this as controversial, I think it's just the dumbest thing ever, personally. Total clickbait type thing, if you want my honest opinion. But, again, people are dumb. You guys know that. But yeah, I like this episode, honestly. It was just a nice little romp through the daily routine at the academy. A literal calm before the storm, because I definitely think something's going to happen soon. Sorry about that. But I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on this episode down below in the comments. If you think it's controversial, let me know. I'd love to hear your take on it. But until next time, guys, I hope you guys have a great day, week, month, and year. And until then, deuces, have a blessed day, and I'll see you guys next time. Deuces.